Sorry we started a few minutes late. Eric, you're the only attendee. So it's all good. I'm gonna call the Planning Board Subcommittee meeting to order of October 23. I'm Jane Remsen, the chair of the subcommittee and vice chair of the planning board. And with us today, we have Alex Koppelman, who's the community development director. We have Sean Henry, who is on the planning board with me and on the subcommittee. We have Greg Kadamatori, who is the planning director. And in the background, we have Eric Hinderly, who is the staff planner. And today we're going to start with matters not reasonably anticipated prior to the noticing of the meeting because we have Alex here as a guest, and he's here to talk to the subcommittee about the new Housing Compass Committee. And we also are expecting in this meeting Beverly Bookin, and she'll be arriving shortly. Take it away, Alex.
All right, thanks, Jane. So the city is beginning a process to basically update our housing plan. It serves several different purposes, the main being to identify what are the housing needs of the Gloucester community. It gathers demographic information. We look at development constraints and opportunities, and we recommend policies and other action items for the city to take to address its housing needs. It also fulfills a function of basically meeting state requirements. There's a housing plan can basically give Gloucester a lot more control over how housing is developed in the city, where it's developed, what type it's made through this plan is basically Gloucester's voice. And it also is an indication to the state, this is what Gloucester wants. And in a nutshell, it gives us more control over what happens. It will identify, how many affordable housing units are needed by how many people, basically everything that you would want to know to tackle this issue. Right now, the committee has about 12 people on it that represent different areas of the city. Sean is the planning board representative for the planning board. We want to make this time regular in planning board meetings to just update you on how it's all going, because a lot of it has to obviously do with what the planning board does and what the housing subcommittee is doing, and we are coordinating together. So also the planning board is the body that votes on whether to adopt the plan in addition to the city council. Both must vote to adopt the plan, and then it would be sent to the state for approval. And then again, once that happens, we essentially have more control over incoming development, basically.
Okay. What's your timing?
It's about a 10-month process typically. So we expect having started last month to be done in the summertime. It will be not so much a far looking plan, but very much about the moment right now. It will allow for conversations about many housing topics that have been of conversation in the community. It will allow us to make people aware of how affordable housing actually works, what it looks like, how many times difficult it is to realize, and how it serves the community. And I really think it's something that touches everyone from higher income folks, workers at Blackburn, in addition to, what you normally think of vulnerable households that are facing housing insecurity. It tackles the top, all the way down.
So it's like a snapshot of what we had, estimation of what we need, and then sort of educational work to explain those needs and potential ways to address those needs to the public, basically.
Yeah, and it's a conversation with the community for sure. We're doing a lot of outreach. We actually completed a community outreach plan to make sure that we're reaching the community as a whole, as well as priority groups that sometimes it's difficult to engage with just because how city government functions. We're trying to really meet people where they're at. We've done a lot of tabling. We've tabled at the farmer's market, at the Halloween party, other events like that. We've held some focus groups. So this will be an ongoing conversation with the community about what the community's telling the city it needs, as well as the information that we gather from all the latest data sources of, kind of where we're at and what our goals are. It will also look at, I think what will be valuable is to really have an understanding of the city as a whole. Where is it difficult based on, Gloucester being a coastal community, vulnerable to flooding, wetlands, partially sewered. It will look at those factors as well as areas where there's great opportunity to bring in the walkable, transit-oriented kind of housing that makes sense. So, that's something that I think we've been looking to in our housing initiatives, is to be able to have kind of a compass, so to speak, of where do we want, what type of housing, where does it make sense based on
That'd be great.
objective,
Yeah.
factors.
Yeah. So you're saying it's not only gonna say what type of housing we need, but you're gonna identify locations where it's important, right? And are these recommendations gonna be action-based? So like, is this gonna be like, here's the state of the union, or is it you're also gonna be having, here's some zoning changes we need to make to
Yeah.
improve things?
The plan will include recommendations for kind of everything and above. It's policies which could involve zoning
Mm-hmm.
changes that the planning board typically deals with, and obviously you're working through right now as a subcommittee. I think there will be a lot fewer of those recommendations in the area of zoning for this plan. The last plan had a lot of zoning recommendations, most have been fulfilled, and we feel that, zoning has, really been worked on a lot by this subcommittee. So as long as we're aware of what you're doing, there may be some recommendations to consider in the current initiatives the subcommittee's working through on the zoning front, as well as maybe some you haven't thought of. But on the whole, I think we're looking at programs, we're looking at funding sources, we're looking at targeted locations to facilitate affordable housing. How do we do it?
Okay.
That's really more what the plan's about. And again, is really focused on the near term as opposed to the long term.
Right. Okay. Do you have any more questions about that? That was gonna move the discussion a little bit sideways. So given all that, what do you think this subcommittee should be working on? And of course, the concern that we've had for a long time is the Railroad Ave area. So I didn't, and by the way, Sean and I have talked about 40R and the Railroad Ave area would be so great, but I had a conversation with Greg. Sean, I don't know if you knew this, but I really didn't understand it very well. Greg said that you
That's
really,
Greg?
yes, it's Greg, said that we needed,
Like I'm not in the room.
that we need a friendly developer to want, to make a 40R worthwhile, and that the thing that Judy, what's her name?
Barrett.
Barrett wrote for us was more of an overlay district, less of a 40R, right? Am I
Yes.
stating it
Yeah, it
correctly?
was a TOD district. It wasn't.
Oh, right, a
40.
TOD district.
So it's
right.
slightly,
Yeah.
they can be similar in a lot of ways, but the idea is when you're creating a 40R district, you're really truly thinking about production. You are making a density calculation, and I won't say that you can't do it without a willing partner, but the way for it to be successful is somebody participating in the process, being fully acknowledged, to then use that zoning, because obviously there's a lot of financial benefit to the community if you enact it.
Right,
And the other thing is, it's also very particular about where you develop one, because it's always looking at the delta of what could be produced right now versus what is produced under the new zoning, in terms of the number of units that get calculated in everything. So that's why, The EV district in that area was something that would be attractive and it's a matter of having that willing partner.
Well, my thinking, number one, I think that we do have potentially friendly developer in the city that would like to see a 40R, it just doesn't happen to be
Yeah.
in that location.
Agreed.
Or is that over by
Yes.
pathways?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my thinking specifically on Railroad Avenue is that the more we do to sort of design and incentivize something that we want to see, the easier it makes the process for any particular developer who comes in to look at what we've designed and say, this looks like a much better idea than going through a lot of hoops to do something else. I mean, I sort of look at it in terms of, not that it was 40R, but we designed the Gloucester Crossing overlay, the partner overlay
Mhm.
for that in designing the overlay, we basically made it very easy for the developers to then come in and build what they wanted to build, but theoretically, we designed what we wanted to design. And I think that would be the same way we can handle 40R in the Railroad Avenue area, even if we don't have somebody working through the process with us to actually get us there. Like what we talked about when we were going through the 3A discussion, that I think is if we make sort of the easy button answer for the developer or solution for the developer, because they know upfront exactly what we've designed in terms of density, parking requirements, all the other things that would go into designing that district. That seems like it'd be a much more attractive option for somebody to pursue than the unknown of coming in and going for, a multifamily special permit from the city council.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, what's attractive is that you have as someone who's interested in working in Gloucester and building here, you would have a very clear idea of what the community's vision and priority is. But it is, a process that should come after a housing plan. I think the housing plan will engage around that area of the city and site that's very much has a question mark on it
Yeah.
right now. And as a result of that, it may then be that you would want to pursue a smart growth district, which I prefer as a term, just because we're always throwing out letters and numbers and it's
right.
confusing.
That's the same as TOD, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
Smart growth, yeah.
smart growth overlay district is what kind of the name of it is, and yeah,
Right.
it's
Wait,
like.
40R?
40R,
Oh,
yeah.
40R is
Yeah,
the smart growth.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's just what it sounds like. It's designed to facilitate growth in your existing infrastructure, transit.
Right.
All the infrastructure be walkable, be, close distance to job opportunities and all of that. So, I think that's something that the process allows us to work through from a vision and community engagement standpoint. And then, the next step would be to pursue that if that's kind of, what we see as the outcome. And I'll tell you why. I mean, it's because this is something that has to be done very collaboratively with city council. The planning board and the city council working together, because city council is the one who approves that. And, in a way, if we think about it, like crafting that zoning is overseeing the permitting of a development up front, and then it's kind of all prepared and ready to go. It can definitely send a signal it will send a signal to, folks interested that, hey, this is what the community's vision is.
Okay.
But
Okay.
to know what that vision is, to know what the concerns around it may be, to have that discussion, you need to really work through the housing planning process first. And also developing a smart growth district, I think, is not really something within in-house expertise, and we would want to be working with a technical assistance provider.
So Beverly, just to catch you up, we're just talking to Alex about the housing compass, and the discussion shifted a little bit to 40R smart growth overlay district and what to do about Railroad Ave. Okay, so you're recommending that we wait for the outcome of the housing compass project.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, it may result in things on, you know, recommendations on other sites that warrant planning board action, like a zoning change or
Mhm.
other, you know. There are lots of ways to build, but we have to have the community conversations first.
I'm just worried that area is, like, we've been talking about it for so long and no one's been doing anything about it. And city council is only gonna be there for 2 years. That we ought to, I don't know, there's nothing we could do in parallel with you to sort of get ready for the conversation. Or would that just be wasted time on our part? You know, like the city council, if we get a city council who's open to housing changes, I feel like we ought to be, you know, proactive in the beginning in January.
And I
With
think,
them.
yeah, and I totally appreciate that. I think the progress that we can make together is to have people understand what a smart growth district is. Including whoever is gonna be on city council. And, you know, you can see from all we've been through as a community when it comes to all of these things, it gets confusing.
Mhm.
There's a lot of information that goes out that isn't accurate.
Right.
And
I think
we,
that's always gonna be the case, no matter what we do, but
we
yes.
really need to make sure people understand what it is and what it means. And then, you know, is there potentially some groundwork to do and in how we might like it to look? Sure, but I do think that it's a big community discussion on Railroad Ave that's needed.
Hmm.
And that has to really happen before we start, writing, you know, regulations.
But you don't think that would happen as part of exploring a smart road overlay?
Well, we will propose the idea in our discussions.
Right.
We will, you know, but I don't think that we should walk into it thinking, you know, that's the best outcome. We have to hear from the community.
I mean, I think if it goes similar to the last effort, you know, the first discussion was about where and what are the opportunities, and I look back at, you know, there were 9 sites that were identified in the last plan, and 4 of them have been developed in different ways. Like you said, it says, yeah, this might be a good, you know, place for housing, but how you get there, they may have different, you know, permitting paths, they have different
Mhm.
ways of doing things. Fuller's a perfect example. That was a kind of a joint effort zoning that resulted in that. And then we had Maplewood Ave, which was a city council special permit, and then we had several friendly 40Bs. So I think what it can help is have regrounding that discussion about this is an appropriate place for housing, maybe this isn't, and whatever reason why that it's not. I mean, we want to also protect business and commercial corridors and things like that. I mean, the idea of just rezoning some of these areas strictly to residential, well, we have neighborhood services that we want to maintain, and that may be irrelevant to somebody that can see the you know, the financial benefit of converting something completely to residential. So I think to Alex's point, I think that broader discussion, you know, the where and what type,
Right.
and kind of having that. And maybe it's something that we can dovetail with, if it's gonna be outside resources to help with that. Almost having like a, you know, kind of like an information session on these tools that could potentially be used.
So I think your last point about weighing benefits of, you know, rezoning something to be residential, I think the benefit, again, I see in designing a smart growth overlay district is that we can specify that it won't be 100% residential. It'll be
Oh, yeah.
mandatory mixed use.
Yeah, I wasn't talking specifically about that
Right.
part, but there might be other areas that,
Right.
you know, you may not want to just, you know,
But to
have that
zone
kind
in
of-
on that, Railroad Ave area, yeah, we really are thinking about mixed use and understanding engagement to date through the 3A process that led us to basically leave the Shaw site out of the zoning was that it was really important to have a grocery store there. And I think we're based on that, we're hopeful to, if there is a redevelopment there, that it would include a grocery store. So we are thinking about mixed use. The engagement will be designed around that. But we need to hear from the community because it's about the type of housing, where it goes and all these different things. And then based on that, it's what tool do we use? So maybe smart growth district's the tool, maybe there's a different tool.
Mhm.
And maybe, there's concerns that need to be, aired out and worked through.
Understood. To that point, we're pushing that larger effort aside. So later on, after hearing from the community, having a new production plan update. trying to- We do have actually smaller, minor recommendations that came out of the prior housing production plan and that came out of the 3A discussion. of Tweaks we can work on in the meantime. Bringing up required setbacks for residential development on Main Street, which are just, we should not have any setbacks on Main Street, because we want Main Street to look like Main Street, right?
And many of the buildings there are already at zero.
Yeah.
So why should you have a setback for
Right.
anything new?
So I think that's a relatively minor change that the committee and the planning board could be working on in the meantime, which I don't, that, again, that recommendation was, sort of inherent in. I think there's still the issue. Free family by right in the outlying districts, which is supported again as we create big push in the favor. Once again, location, push some of this development out from the downtown area. And when we're working through 3A, we did leave out like Magnolia, which is a downtown neighborhood, well, downtown Magnolia neighborhood that has pre-existing multifamily housing. And so I think we could research and explore the possibility of adding multifamily use to that neighborhood, to make redevelopment of some of those single story buildings along Lexington Avenue, make it more attractive for somebody to come in and know they have a relatively easier path, not necessarily a by right path, but a specified path that they could get to multifamily out there. So I think there's a lot of little tweaks
2-family by right with exterior changes.
like that we should be doing, or that we could be doing, and not to overstep what's happening with the housing compass, but again, trying to keep things moving forward.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because as I said, I want the housing compass plan to not be very zoning centric. There's a lot of other things the city can do besides change its zoning to help address the housing situation, but clearly there's a relationship there.
It's a strong relationship.
Yes,
When you have no multifamily zoning required, it's a strong relationship.
right, so, but bigger initiatives like that, in addition to, I'd say, what you're looking at with the inclusionary housing requirements, are sort of the things that would rise to the level of, I think, a plan would discuss them. And certainly the data that's been gathered should be looked at as you look at this inclusionary zoning ordinance, and determine what direction you're going to move there, to make sure it's actually producing affordable housing for people in Gloucester that they can afford.
Well,
And-
hang on one
yeah.
second, we're in the middle of a public hearing on that in the planning board,
So you
so
cannot-
can't
you cannot
discuss
speak
that
about
here. Right.
Okay, but there may be additional tweaks to that come out of the plan, and higher level zoning items, but the ones that you're focusing on now, I think are the right ones. And as long as, we keep each other updated, I think we're in good shape.
Okay, so that small list that Sean just talked to you about, I would add maybe the watershed overlay district, which needs updating. And then we had talked about subdivision rules and regs, although I can't remember why. Updating those
Related to stormwater.
relating to stormwater, right?
So, and it's pretty amazing that I gave you a presentation and discussion in January,
Yeah, you did.
and we're pretty close
We
to
are.
it.
Yep.
So we talked about the first,
It's because I keep
Part
on my
being-
lists.
finishing off comprehensive plan and, draft plan review and implementation priorities, and we finished that.
Yeah.
We did talk about looking at.
Do you want to share that?
I can share it, sure.
While Greg is sharing, Alex, what's the best way for us to be in communication with you about what we're doing and what you're doing? I mean, Sean will report out on the stuff the committee's doing, but
Yeah,
should I be keeping you apprised of what we're working on?
I think, Greg and I know where each other live, so.
Are your offices next week, next year?
We are one office away. from
Oh,
each
good, all right,
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
okay.
So kind of finished trapezoid number one. We are working pretty diligently on the cluster OSRD right now. We've talked about, and I'll be working with the engineering department on a draft of a new watershed ordinance, which again, I don't think necessarily is gonna be a very heavy lift for members, but from a process standpoint, we can discuss it here before it advances. I've had some discussions about tree clearing and tree ordinances and slope disturbance, and that's kind of made its way into the draft of the OSRD. Alex just talked about updating a housing production plan, and that is, kind of kicked off in the last couple of months. We've had discussion about ADU,
Mhm.
and there's one little tweak. I mean, I think the building commissioners participating in that, some zoning board members participating in that. They're pretty clear on the distinction between state regulations as well as their own. So there's only a minor tweak that has to happen with that. And we're, as you just mentioned, in the middle of the preliminary ordinance public hearing. And 40R is the one that's on the very end of the timeline. But again, I think it'll make sense as that process advances, when that term is going to come up in
Mhm.
these discussions, and it's going to have to be explained pretty clearly.
Mhm.
So, it's possible that we could potentially get, a resident or technical assistance with somebody that's very experienced with it to kind of give case examples, where it's worked, why it's worked, to kind of educate people about, what it could be. I think would be an important step.
Are we talking about 40R?
Yes, yeah. So
Just because ADUs are there. One thing I mentioned, I know I mentioned this to Jane, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but one thing I discovered in working in my parents' place in California, that the county, California, it's very much promoting ADUs. And
Yeah.
one of the things the county where I grew up has done, they have 11 plans that you can download for free from the county website.
Hmm.
And walk into the building department and say, this is what I'm gonna build.
This is freestanding.
Yeah. And as long as you have the setback requirements,
Yeah, and it's in your backyard and
it's done. And so I thought, I don't know if we need to do that kind of proactive work here. Provide the community with again, 6 or 8 designs to make it easier and more affordable, to cut out the architectural plans.
I was gonna say, the Architects Guild is gonna come out.
Yeah.
I say
But
The architects.
for an ADU, I mean,
But expanding from that, what I heard at one of the mayoral discussions from both candidates is that the hesitancy around allowing multifamily and outlying districts, and particularly as a by right use, is that people want to know what's going to be going in. They want to have that discussion and know what it's going to look like. And so, I just mentioned it briefly to Jane, because I thought, having to think about it because of the ADUs. What if we were to design, several 4, 5, and 6 unit multifamily buildings? And say, just like they're doing with the ADUs, if you pick one of these designs and you meet all the setbacks, you can actually have a multifamily building in R40 and R80
So you know
Right.
what you're buying.
by right.
Well, I mean.
Again, and not to, we
Yeah.
don't have to get in discussion, I just want to plant the seed in your head as something to talk about
I would say
down the
that,
road. And maybe bring it up at Housing Compass too, to see how it lies with the community.
converting a single family existing building and making units within it is a good way to create more housing units without changing any way the community looks, any way it feels. There's been an emphasis on that, especially in places where you have large single families that, maybe aren't being utilized anymore. And, it's something that the city of Newton's done a great job with in terms of their regulations. So it is a nice way in the category of ADUs of expanding housing stock without changing the community very much at all. So, you may see some, single family to 4 family, but no changes to the building. It's all within the
Well,
building.
the notion of designing it would be, you could actually be building new multifamily buildings that look very much in keeping with the existing single-family buildings, but there doesn't have to be one to convert on the lot, so you could actually, as long as you take this plan that the city has pre-approved, you can create a 4-family home in West Gloucester in R80, because it doesn't look too much different than the other homes around there, right? Anyway. not to
Those
get
are two different things,
not-
but
yeah,
they're
I guess
both
they
good
are.
Not
ideas.
to get
Yeah,
into a long discussion about it, but just,
yeah, but also a 3-family or 4-family by right in those districts with no exterior changes to the building.
Except sometimes you have to have some exterior because. you
Well,
have to have
it
doors,
lands
you have
us
to have
back in
doors.
the,
I mean, it's not as
Just
simple
like
as
the
it sounds.
2-family.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
you
lands
know.
us back into the inequality of what we were trying to extinguish, so.
I think it's no changes. I think it's minimal changes. But I think a concept that we can start thinking about and maybe educating people is the missing middle, which is the densities in the middle. When people think of density, they think of schoolhouse. What's missing in most communities is the 4 to 8. You know, and the fact that we have people who freak out over triplexes by right, but it's that middle, the real place to gain density in a community that's as developed as we are, 400 years worth of development, is increasing densities, ADUs and duplexes by right are a big part of that, but it's really the 4, 5, 6. And we could really, really make progress on that if we had some way for people to recognize that those are minimal.
Well, one of the recommendations in the comprehensive plan is to utilize form-based code when helpful. And I do think that it's a much better way, not only to organize the regulations, but to explain to people the impact of what we're talking about.
Alex, I don't know what that term means.
So it's basically, I mean, like the zoning that we have in a lot of the zoning around here is Euclidean zoning, so it's specifying uses and dimensions and all these things
And
that.
densities in terms of housing.
Yeah, and it's written and it's hard to visualize, it's hard to understand. So form-based code would be less about the use and all of these things, but more about the form and how it would basically mass on the street. And that way, I think you can have more of a discussion of like, how do we want community to feel and look, rather than specific dimensions and, certain square foot per, dwelling unit and these things
Yeah.
that.
I think, so we did a little bit of that in the past and it's called kind of looking at trying to identify typologies. So
Mm.
there's, what is a prototypical three-family stacked look like? What does one look like that maybe is, multiple floors per unit? I think the challenge is if you were looking at an area for infill and every lot was 50,
Yeah,
5,000
the
square
same.
feet with 50 feet of frontage.
Yeah,
You can build that box and look at that roof line and say, okay. And it's
mhm.
almost, it's actually almost to your point. It's saying, it's more important what it looks like. That's how people generally
how it
experience it.
feels in its
Than
face.
what's going on inside the building. But the issue I think that we've clearly seen and are facing is there is just a sentiment of we are at capacity.
Right.
In terms of traffic, in terms of infrastructure and all those things. So it's hard to say, okay, well, if it was 35 feet and it was no more than 20% of it could be 4 units and that just, it's hard.
There's really great examples, form-based code, like Situate and Ashland, they have these form-based codes where certain areas of their main street or community will be allowed to be basically a little bit larger, and a little bit more intense, and then other areas would have to be kind of in a smaller size, but it's still allowing multifamily. It's just focused on the form and how it looks and how large it is. It has diagrams in it that say in this, area, you can have townhouses and duplexes and mixed use and whatever, and it'll show you kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
When we're looking at zoning, we're reading words.
Yeah.
And the calculations that are made in these zoning tables, it's almost impossible to see what that actually means. So it may be like a big area of relief from a setback or something, or some one of those obscure requirements within the table that you don't really know the impact of it, but it may look big because it's a lot different than what it's saying. Here, it's just kind of like, you can see, how do you like to look? Do you want this to be small scale, mid scale, whatever?
I think when we're working with Judy Bear on some of the rezoning amendments, she showed us something similar to this from one of the towns on the Cape. That basically said, if you can do a multifamily downtown. if
It looks like this.
If it looks like this. But, again, not all the architectural details, but
Right.
basically,
So you can specify the scale, housing type.
Number of units.
Hmm.
Now, I was a planner for 35 years. I never did a performance-based zoning code. I mean, I know them in
Performance-based
principle,
is a little different, but
but I mean, I've always done including.
But
Very hard to
there
break
also
out.
could be something
to break
about
out.
if in the list, which we've talked about, and I mean, so much of this has to be beyond the subcommittee.
Right.
And even the natural progression of subcommittee, planning board, city council sooner, and maybe this is something that has to happen in the beginning of the year. But, in particular, a dialogue about their own permitting. Because
Who's on
That's
boarding?
city council, I mean, they're the ones that are seeing the larger projects.
Yeah.
And as somebody comes in and says, I can only offer you 75% of the requirement for open space for dwelling unit in the downtown. What does that mean? Like those dimensions are very suburban in the downtown environment.
Right.
And how, what do they most care about is generally probably what it looks like and what its potential impacts are.
Right.
And that is not the thing to hang your hat on and have this big, I have to give you a special permit for that.
Right.
So, I mean, to your point about building height and visualization, we have some good examples at this point, of what 45 feet to 50 feet looks like. And
mean
it's
height?
mostly been our zoning board that's been the permit granting authority, but how would that differ?
You mean height, 45 and 50?
Yeah. So I mean, but what's important, those elements of having a higher floor on Main Street,
Right.
for display space, for whatever use is gonna be on that floor. That would probably be something that would be helpful and supportive. So that you can really focus on, well, what are the issues and what type of relief is being asked? And when has it been a detriment?
yeah, I mean, it's a basic question is the zoning getting you what you want? Is it producing the things that the community likes? Oftentimes, no. Is it consistent with what's already there? Oftentimes, no.
Right.
But tackling it this way, I think allows you to have a much different conversation.
Right. Well, that's why I keep bringing up the setback requirements downtown, because realistically, even though people complain about how they're getting relief for mandated setbacks, is that no one will want to see a 20-foot green grass yard
On
on
Main
Main
Street,
Street,
yeah,
right? They want Main Street to look like Main Street.
Yeah.
And yet our zoning right now, our setback requirements are, as soon as you add in residential use, it creates that process where they have to seek relief before they can even get to what it's gonna really look and feel like, right?
yeah. So when someone comes to us and shows us a beautiful development that, let's just say everyone loves it, it needs relief in like 6, 7, 8
Oh,
areas,
yeah,
you know?
right.
And that is the nature of Euclidean zoning though.
Yeah, but if we wanna have a demonstration project, of how form-based works versus Euclidean, the Shaw site is probably one that is, you could have demonstration site, maybe not the whole Railroad Avenue, but certainly the Shaw site is ripe for redevelopment. It really is. And
So we did some of that with the reimagining Railroad Avenue and the downtown work plan, where we actually, again, not did a full-on architectural study, but just the massing
Mhm.
of, it wasn't over at the Shaws, it was across the street, the sub shop and the former farmer's market.
And they're single, is a single story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it combined those. It actually did the laundromat, which is next to Harbor Village, that massing.
Mhm.
And I think it did the Brass Monkey too, right?
Brass Monkey,
The Brass Monkey. So, and I thought that was very effective, because again, my recollection is that the majority of people of the public coming to those meetings were like, yeah, that's pretty
I can
cool.
live with it.
So,
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Can
Anyone
I-
else with things
can I
on-
just-
Yeah,
I
and I
just-
have one more question for Alex too.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
I'm in the process of re-upping a course that I'm gonna lead at our Harvard program on affordable housing crisis. Edward Glazer, who is the urban economist at Harvard, says that there are something for us all to consider. There are two biases. People tend to have a higher than reasonable value of existing development, so that they're reluctant to give up. And they overestimate the negative impacts of change. Think about
That's
that.
certainly true for Gloucester.
Well, and think about the times that there was a conflict over a redevelopment. And people were really holding tight to what was there, and then what is proposed gets built.
And it's
People can't even remember what was there before, right? And if it's well-designed and reasonable in scale to the surrounding neighborhood, they actually like it. But the mindset is they overvalue what's there and they overestimate the
Mhm.
negative impacts of higher. So,
Very true. Alex, comp plan, just quickly. I actually never saw a final draft. And I know
Well, here you
it exists. Okay, thanks. But it's online, right? And I'm thinking it would be good to send it to, I mean, did you guys ever look at the final?
we worked on our comments.
Yeah.
I just figured that, but no.
It'd be also good to send to city council, particularly the new city council when
Yeah, the new one for sure. We did discuss it at the city council meeting after you all kind of
yeah.
put your stamp on it. We talked to council and they had some great
Sure.
conversations about it.
You had the final layout.
I
and
know it.
everything.
I
You
know
made
I
all the
did.
decisions.
I know, it's just that there was no like, here it is. It was the last thing I saw
I
was
think-
something I was
I
still
think the
commenting
sentiment
on.
was, thank God it's done.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe in that
I know.
moment.
Maybe, but
Well,
anyway, I just wanted, like, there was no fanfare or any,
I have to tell you, I worked on master plans in a lot of communities and the engagement starts out very large in the beginning.
Yeah.
And by
Mm.
the end, it actually.
Everybody's.
It was over 2 years long. Of
I
a
know.
process,
Yeah.
I mean. So
I mean, was there even a GDT article?
there was,
Oh,
oh yes.
that's great.
I'm quoting.
Okay.
It was summertime, Jane.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I
it
was, I
happened.
was so busy.
It happened while we were on the beach.
All right,
And
thank
those
you.
3 days in which it was warm at the beginning.
Thanks, Alex, for coming. I'm not shooing you away. I'm just saying you can be done if you want to
Oh,
be done.
sure, okay.
Do you have anything else for us?
I think we have another subcommittee meeting 5, so I'll see you there.
Yes.
Yep.
We
Do you
do.
have another subset?
Yes.
Nothing for you, Beverly.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for making the time.
Well, I was wondering if I had gotten a
Alex, if
date.
you wanna, meet, I'm gonna be gone next week, but if you wanna meet the week after to talk about, coordinate with the outreach for the, during the tree stuff.
Yes,
And, not to jump in.
Yeah, no, go for it.
But maritime, because, Our Haven is gonna be doing projects over there, sent these, or port communication.
good time to hand things out.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, can I make a quick announcement?
You know.
So the MBTA is tabling in Gloucester to see if there's interest in having a MBTA ferry here,
Oh, wow.
which
Oh,
is
wow.
a
Tabling.
comprehensive plan recommendation. So I'm gonna just see if you all would like to send out the survey, because that'd be a great way for us to advocate. for it.
You
So
mean
it's a
to our
ferry from
personal-
here to Boston?
It's not clear where it would go. They're thinking about it from a commuting standpoint, as well as I think just getting people around. I would love to see it connect to Salem.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
So it's a passenger or a car?
That'd
Passenger.
passenger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
All right,
totally.
because you were talking about tabling, so it just
Yeah.
came to mind. All right,
Right.
yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Using tabling as the term as you have a table with stuff on it.
Yes.
As opposed
Yeah.
to tabling something and having, we'll talk about that later, tabling. Thank you. Tabling is a verb to
To
present a
table,
topic.
to sit at a table and
Tabling,
tell
to
people about
table an
things.
issue is a verb. but
Right.
Tabling by putting stuff out and having a discussion is really an
Right.
odd use of the term. Thank
Okay,
you.
just for the record, we are going to now move to the continued review of the Gloucester zoning ordinance sections 5.9 cluster development and 5.15 open space residential development. New draft ordinance, right? Did I do that right? That was the
Yeah.
wrong agenda. So you guys all got this
Yeah.
clean
Mhm.
version?
And you asked me to just go through and. make
Yeah,
some-
yeah.
and A
Well,
lot of
wait,
them are comments.
Did
but-
you, wait, why is yours highlighted? Oh, that's the one, yes, the good.
Yeah, but you asked me to take a look at this and
No, I asked you to take a look at this.
I looked at this one too, because
That
I
one's-
looked at all
that-
the changes.
Okay, well, that's
was
one we
your
worked
one.
on last time that we already fixed.
No, you fixed them. I looked at some of your fixed.
Yeah, there's more fixes in here.
Okay.
But
Did we sort out the numbering and make sure it's?
Yeah.
correct?
because I reorganized all the sections.
Oh, okay.
So as we go,
Sorry.
so the first question is, do you like the reorganization? But you can think about it as we go through.
It seemed a little, the old seemed really repetitive the more I thought about it.
So if we go, if anyone has any questions on the first, I think we can just go through it page by page at this point, if you guys are good.
Sorry
Um,
about that. I misunderstood.
You
And
want me to put this up?
sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I was just gonna ask about the density bonus again, for more affordable units.
yeah, before we get to that though, I just need to, under definitions, I need to figure out what this section is supposed to refer to.
Where were you?
Where?
5.9.3 definitions, top of the second page. Yeah, that's section 5.9.7 or 6.
Ordinance, conservation.
To have definition, to have just, oh, we have A and B. That's all we need.
The open space requirements are talked about in 5.9.6. But this was the old like I tracked it with the old numbers. And the old numbers referred it to the site design standards, but I didn't think that was right, but I'm not sure.
And these are the only two definitions that are unique to this.
3
proposal?
definitions: conservation area,
Oh,
open
C,
space,
yes.
critical
yes, yes,
natural
yes.
resources, conservation easement. Anyway, Greg, you can figure,
Yeah.
you can figure that out. I'm not sure what it's supposed to.
I'll try to go backwards a few drafts and see,
Okay.
see where it was pointing.
Okay,
But the point of definitions in this section are only those definitions which apply to this section.
Yes,
as
and
opposed to
occur,
generic.
and occur here and
A little
nowhere,
bit more
nowhere else.
specific.
in
And
the
nowhere
cluster.
else.
Yeah.
So in other words, you wouldn't define HOA.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that these are unique, that's all. I
Yeah.
want. And I'm gonna underline them, they're so hard to see.
What are?
Well, when you're looking at the section, I assume you put some spaces between them or something. I mean, I had to really look to see A, B, and C.
Okay,
You see
so
what I'm saying?
back to your question of density and the formula. So the areas highlighted in yellow are the ones that I feel like we're still talking about.
Yeah, but
Yellow highlight didn't print. but
Oh.
I went through,
Okay,
got on the computer and through.
so density bonus. You were gonna say,
I
Sean,
was just asking what people's thoughts were on that.
So I ran some numbers, some ideas, and I think it's a big question. I mean, I think one of the things that we've had a lot of discussion about is, you know, having and I know David's had some comments about this as well, but maybe his is more about, you know, how could we try to create this so that this is always considered when there's a multi lot or multi-unit development that would
Right.
otherwise qualify meeting the thresholds of an OSRD. And I think the challenge with that is you either create a by right OSRD
mhm,
and through the subdivision process, but we've talked a lot about the ability and desire to have the special permit because of its flexibility to be not a subdivided
mhm,
multi
right,
structure
to
development.
be unallotted. Yeah.
So putting that aside, you know, if the calculation creates a reasonable capacity, it may be that if you introduce another calculation, it may shoot beyond the capacity
Mhm,
that's permitted, just because of the other issues of trying to, you know, still preserve 50% open space and all the other things. But I think we also talked about whether or not instead of having some density bonus, that there was a way to incorporate that into the calculation of
Mhm.
lot of density that would arrive at more units.
and it would be automatic.
And it would, if you elected to do 60% AMI, then, you know, this is what you would have attained. It's hard to say, you know, for the most part, subdivisions that you review result in for sale units. And so if that were the case, there's something attractive about creating affordable units that would be for sale and at 60%. Which, so I started looking at, you know, let's take,
Progress.
oh, you just logged in.
Yeah.
If we were looking at like some sort of prototypical zoning district and project, I mean, we've created a threshold of 10 acres for a project that has,
Can you share that?
No.
Okay, okay,
just because it's,
Okay,
I'm
so
just, I'm
lots
gonna
of holes
talk
in my
you through
head.
it.
Go
I'll
ahead.
talk you through it first,
okay,
because all of the equations are built into it, so it's
Okay.
really just the number.
go ahead.
So, but if you had a 10-acre property, and let's just say 20% of it is some sort of resource area.
I thought you have to have a maximum of 50, so why would it be
50 of what?
open space?
No,
This
I'm
is
just,
just the critical, okay.
so 10-acre property. And in our calculation, well, I could put that calculation back up, which is that you're detracting in your density calculation, the critical natural resources, right?
Mm-hmm,
And then there's also a 15% allowance for roadway and infrastructure. So let's just say that those critical natural resource areas were about 20% of the property, which is not unreasonable. I mean,
Okay.
with what's left.
yep,
And so that, if you applied everything in the straightforward way with the calculation we already had, that 10 acres would allow for 9.6 units under the way that we have talked about this calculation.
okay,
And I'm assuming we will, and it's something that made me think as I did this calculation, we have to deal with rounding, and we should probably round up,
oh, yeah,
right?
okay, yep,
So there's another thing that we'll have to put a footnote or under the calculation, so we round up.
Or you can put it under definitions that for purposes of
Yeah.
calculating.
So in any way, we need to be explicit.
Okay.
So we have 10 units under the inclusionary ordinance, you would either produce 2 units at 80% AMI, which actually turns out to be 20%. So there's always that, it's never going to be perfect. Or you would produce 1 unit at 50% AMI, because we've said
Per
if you-
acre, per acre.
No, we've said in our inclusionary ordinance, if you do 60% AMI, you only have to do 10% of the units. So it's either two at 80 or 1 at 60. So my thought was, well, what if you're gonna do all 60% AMI units? But you can only, based on the base calculation, you're limited.
Right.
So if you wanted to get more of them, if you had to produce them at 15%, but you had a different calculation that would allow for more units to be created. So my thought was, what if you had a multiplier or a fraction of the denominator? Because the way that calculation was, you had to divide by the base zoning requirement for a lot in
Right.
that district. If you do 75% of that requirement, the way that it would play out is that base calculation of density would go from that 9.67 or 10 to 18.7, which is kind of surprising with just that one little tweak.
Yeah,
So you've almost doubled the density. And now your unit count rounds up to 19 and you get 3 affordable. So you go from having 1 at 10 to 3 as a portion of 19.
3 at 60% AMI.
At 60% AMI. So again, these are, we can run a lot of different scenarios. But it's
Yeah.
amazing how much that little,
So I know, so when I was thinking about this in terms of density bonus for more affordable units, I was more thinking you get 10 units and only one of them has to be a 60% AMI. I was thinking it much more simply, like take another one of your units and add a 60% AMI and you can have another market rate unit. Because going from 9, you're just doubled the number of units.
yeah.
And
you tripled the number.
And you
of
had,
affordable.
you mathematically, you have to do that in order to get some amount of units to be 10% or 15% of what you have to get.
Yeah,
another-
I just think the idea of a 1-for-1 is probably not gonna make sense.
It doesn't make sense economically.
I
or
don't, I mean, if
financially.
so let's just think about the sale price. The sale price of that 60% AMI unit is going to be, in this moment in time, is probably gonna be less than the construction cost of it.
Mhm. And
So-
having another.
So
market
then
unit
having
doesn't-
one more market, you still have that
doesn't
construction
make up
cost.
for it.
And then does that profit cover, and does it make sense?
Well, you could add 2 units for one more affordable. I mean, but you've just added 9 units. For you,
I'm just telling
I
you,
know.
that's what I was saying. I'm
I
like,
know.
so
So you-
now you're picking, like what is the, the profit margin on the market rate units
So
that affords somebody to
Right.
be able to build another affordable unit.
And it's
at
basically
60%.
it's basically 3 units per one at 60%. It's basically like,
So it could be, we could try it at
no,
80%.
I'm just
No,
saying,
no, I mean, but so
I'm-
you can,
I'm just saying the way our inclusionary ordinance works is basically, if you back the math out the other way, it's, it's 18 units gets you. Wait, that doesn't work. Yeah, 18 units gets you 3, that's 60%.
so 90% of the underlying zoning district gets you to 15.5 or 16. It adds 5 units. And then, okay, yeah, it's,
15 is the missing middle.
16.
That give you 2 units.
Isn't it?
at 60%.
15 is.
So
15 is
90% gives you what,
Not
15
25,
units?
it's 15.
It gives you 16.
16.
You know what, I mean, it would be very helpful if we just did a calculation. I'm sorry, I'm following it in principle, I am not following it mathematically. So if you have 10 acres And 20% of your land is critical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
for, you don't even need to know that part. Just basically 10 acres gets, just pretend it gets you 10 units. Like that's all we're really talking about.
10 acres get you 10 units?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's like an R40? I mean, 10 units on 10 acres?
Well, let's just use that as an example. Doesn't really matter. The
Well,
land,
Well, it does
the
matter.
land size doesn't matter what
10
we're,
units on 5 acres because you're conserving
yeah,
50%.
and just,
Okay, so it's 2 units per acre on 10, right?
it's just really how the calculation changes what, depending on what you do to the denominator, like how big of a small of an impact is that?
well, I mean, and just in terms of what we've heard from feedback,
Hmm,
here I'm trying to think of like where is there, if the goal is, again, open space residential development is the name
yes,
of it,
yes,
conserving open space.
yes,
But if part of this is an incentive for affordability, which I think is a very broad
goal.
common theme in
Yep.
everything that we've heard
yep,
for the last long time. If it's not by calculation and it's, because there's also been a request from somebody that's been watching these and coming to these for simplicity.
yes,
Your approach is simplicity of
yes,
what is the number of units that would make sense to increase the number of affordable units? So I was trying to ground it more in the way the calculation works right now.
Mhm.
It's like you make a calculation based on the base zoning, and is there some multiplier of that?
mhm,
And we've already talked about this makes it a lot simpler from the developer's perspective of not having a lot of plan and having to do all that pre-engineering and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that it misses a little bit is if I were doing a conventional subdivision, I could do 2 units per lot. No longer have the double the density requirement. I have halving of the lot area per unit, so. Could they do 20 units and get 10 lots? Maybe not, because we're starting to put this realism in of.
Right.
These areas are unbuildable.
Mhm.
You're not gonna be able to put them into your lots to make it make sense. So. Then it's like, what is that multiplier? And maybe it's 90%, maybe it's 95%. But it's gonna be this continued. More units, but at the end of the day, you're only getting 1 or 2 more
mhm.
affordable units, which is not something to. You know,
Sneeze at, right, but it's just.
thank you for the analogy. I wasn't sure what I was gonna say.
But
But
it's still-
it's like, it's a lot,
I can't
It's-
imagine
I think it's
anyone
a-
being offended at my sneezing, so.
Just finishing.
but it's a lot for, I think, for people to try to figure out, is
Right,
this acceptable to almost have another third of units when you have a calculation that otherwise would say it's gonna be 10,
right.
and all of a sudden you're up to 16 and
Yeah,
you're
no,
getting more
no,
affordable
it's not.
units. So,
Yeah, and but it's not just portable units, it's getting more units.
Right.
It's increasing the supply,
Yeah.
of which, by virtue of increasing the supply, at least economically, in theory, the price will come down because you have more supply to meet demand, and within you have units that have prescribed prices, which are,
And they're more likely to be compact units. If you're going from 10 units on 5 acres to 16, your building envelope is probably gonna come down a little bit.
well, and they're not all gonna be for sale. I mean, if you do a non-subdivision, then they can be rental product. They don't have to be sale product, right?
mhm.
I
We don't
mean,
talk about ownership.
although
could
on
either be rental or
subdivision, you buy the land, I mean, presumably. You buy the land and the units you put on, remember, they're indistinct, when you have a piece of property with a house on it, the house and the house or the duplex and the lot are indivisible, and they're sold as a unit, right? And you can you can build it and rent it out, but someone has to buy the lot and build the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's the kind of problem with this I understand this decision here, I sort of understand the decision. That you can either do it as a plan unit development cluster, or you can do it as a clustered subdivision.
Mhm.
Okay?
Right.
But the clustered subdivision has some presumptions, and the presumptions are that they're for sale, they're for sale.
More likely than
units.
not, yeah.
A cluster, you could have.
Right.
And so if I were looking for simplicity, I would look at this as a PUD where the land is owned in common with an HOA.
Oh, you would look at it as a what? You said POD?
A PUD, planned unit development.
Oh.
It would be like the village at West Gloucester,
Mhm.
34 units on 25 acres,
Mm-hmm,
half of which is in conservation, it's a perfect example.
mm-hmm,
Half of which is, or more is in conservation, 13 of 25 acres are in conservation
Mhm.
zone, permanent easement. 34 units on the remaining 12 acres. It is for sale, they're duplexes, it is for sale. But once you buy it, the property owner has the right to rent it. So that they
Mhm.
could go as rentals or
Right, right, right.
as sale. I believe Magnolia actually has lots.
They have
Magnolia-
lots.
They have lots. And
That's-
I think a
You mean
PUD with
the
no
cluster-
one,
It wasn't a cluster, it's an
oh,
odd creation where they did a subdivision, but they decided to make a condominium association.
oh,
yeah,
never mind.
Yes.
but it's awkward to lot it. It's awkward to lot a cluster development.
Yeah, well, and let's not
So
talk
I-
cluster, because we're not doing clusters anymore, but
Well,
yes, this is,
So back to the
Theoretically unlotted,
calculation, I think
yeah.
one of the things that I could see being raised in terms of if you're gonna differentiate and try to build in more density is the whole point of the original calculation was to create realism
right,
because it was simple
right,
and you didn't have to go through the plan exercise. So you started saying, okay, these are the things that we care about. You can't count them
right,
because they're not really buildable or they're, you know, they're part of the landscape
That
that
ought to be
we don't
saved.
want you to touch and save.
right,
And then you go right back in and start, you know, adding density back in if you
yeah,
play with the denominator. And maybe,
but it's the kind of density you want, I mean, if it,
Well, that's what we want. That's not necessarily what neighbors want.
yeah, right,
but maybe it's less about well, I guess one of the other things that we've always tried to figure out, and when we don't have enough examples of, is whether or not 15% at 80 versus 10% at 60
it's really a big
is
difference.
is really something that is a reduction in the number of 60% units that is attractive to somebody doing it. I mean, they're gonna, at the end of the day, same construction cost, big difference in sale or rental
Right.
price. And if it's one more and they're all in that category or one less,
Yeah, it's not a
um,
big deal. is it?
it's kind of hard. I mean, I just don't know if it scales. I mean, if you were
Right.
doing, if you had to do 15 units in a 100-unit development,
Yeah,
or you only
right.
had to do 10,
Right.
still, how does it scale?
Right,
So that's why I started to do this because, yeah, 6 more units, I think that might do it, but is that,
no,
is that enough for the value of the second?
I don't think so.
60%
What do
unit.
you guys think? I think that's too radical.
Well, I think we haven't considered yet whether that's even doable on a particular lot, right? I mean, because most of these areas this might happen in aren't necessarily sewer. So
Does that mean some of these bonus calculations might
May not work out
they
anyway.
don't work
not
out.
even work out?
Well, and not that many sites that are subject to, so spending a lot of time.
That's why, again, for simplicity's sake, I thought we just essentially build in the density bonus into the ordinance, and not a dramatic one like that. I think actually your example of getting 10 units on 5 acres and where you're conserving 50% is most likely they're getting more units than they would with a conventional subdivision
Especially because the lot,
in the first place.
because the parcels that are left have difficult
Yeah.
natural resource areas on
Yeah.
them. Yep,
So that was my feeling, is we just make this an attractive alternative to a conventional subdivision, because based on the calculations and what you're preserving, you might get a couple more units possibly. And it's a more attractive development and you're conserving open space.
Right.
Let's take a step back. Where this is applied, typically it's going to be R20, R40, R80,
20, 30, 40, 80,
20, 40.
20, 30, 40, 80.
So on the
Yeah.
10 acre.
Okay. And so if you,
Not RC40.
what, I don't remember what ours. But
East
R
Point.
20, 10 acres would be 20 units. Wait a minute, is that right? R20.
Roughly.
Yes, rough, I mean, if,
Two times 10
Yeah.
would be 20, on a 10 acre side would be 20.
right,
Mhm.
if there was, it was a former farm.
Yeah.
If there were no other resource areas that were gonna be detracted from it.
Yeah. See, from the beginning, I have said, you should look at the underlying zoning, you should look at the number that 10 acre, let's say 10 acre would yield. And you allow them to buy that many units on a restricted area.
Well, that's what we're doing.
It's,
Yeah.
no, you're not. You're, in the calculation, you are taking some of the land out.
Right.
A strict transfer of development right says this 10 acre site at R20 would generate 20 units, correct? Two
But it
units.
wouldn't if
Not if half of it
it
were
was a pond.
resource area.
Yeah.
It's still,
Or a steep
it's still
slope that can't
a
be
transfer. I mean, you
developed.
talked me into saying that you should take some of it out, but
You
In
did,
in
you
other
done a
zone,
great-
but in other zoning codes, you transfer what would be allowed on the whole site onto the restricted site so that you can take the pond out. But whatever. I mean, this is why we're having this problem. It wouldn't be a problem if you just transferred the development rights for the whole thing to the 50%. It means that you would build 20 on 5 acres instead of building it on 10 acres, and you would take the 5 acres you take out as the steep slopes and the vernal ponds and the blah, blah, blahs. And you would still, and it would be, that's the.
Yeah, but by taking it, well, we don't need to open this.
So,
discussion again.
but I also want to point
Sorry,
out that the
I'm just not in
existing
favor of this.
cluster already takes out, we have expanded what we define as critical natural resources.
Mhm.
The existing cluster ordinance already, when you do your calculation of applicable land area that could be used for development, and calculating the density, it's minus resource areas and otherwise prohibited by regulation. So there's already, I mean, this is a step further
Mhm.
with some of the realism of past proposals and, you know,
Mhm.
what. So there was already that in there, but I understand your experience is, it's really simple. It's just
Transfer
divide it
development.
out and you
And-
have to
and-
preserve 50%.
Yeah.
But, you know, that would also, in the situation where you had 2 acres dry and 8 acres underwater, you know, that would really
Yeah.
make a high density project.
Well, it would, but it also means that you can transfer it, but only if you can make it work functionally in terms
Yeah.
of water, sewer.
Right.
Yep, yep.
And so in other words, by restricting it onto a small acreage, you don't necessarily get to, you still have to meet the two that are gonna really be killers are stormwater and sewer.
Right.
Well, and water too, for that matter, depending whether you do it with wells or you do it with sewer. But that's the simplest way to do it. And other jurisdictions do it that way. It's called a simple transfer development.
I know.
But
Thinking outside the box, this is a whole different idea. What about a density bonus for smaller unit housing? Where the size of the buildings building envelopes stays the same. But if you wanna
Well,
have,
that's like a starter home district type of thing, which you could, again,
and
depending
that
on
would,
how you
and that
want to
would
do it.
generate,
We know how you can tweak the equation very easily. But if you said, if you're gonna build 2-bedroom units or, you know,
Go by square feet.
yeah,
square footage.
1,200 square foot units or less, you know, then you can build more.
well, and that would generate more affordable units.
Just
both
by,
both
That's
more,
what's missing.
more.
for
Potentially.
Smaller
Yeah.
starter.
So,
homes.
like,
I
and
mean,
that
even
gets at
if
the
you went on the
missing-
basis of, yes, generally there is a cost per square foot for, you know, for residential use and you have less of it. But it's not necessarily gonna be, you know, deed restricted affordable, but
No,
Yeah, but it.
No,
has
but it
two.
would
says
generate
you
more
did it first
affordable
And
units.
It'll
just
generate more
supply.
units, yeah.
Just supply.
supply, yeah.
Yeah, natural.
And supply.
Possibly.
And
So I think Acton has a table, which we can either look at it now or we can distribute it, you can look at it. But they basically have an approach like that. It's a different calculation based on the product that you're producing, which is, I suppose, as long as there's enough options, because the most challenging thing we could potentially try to do is predict the market in a zoning.
Right.
right.
But if you created enough opportunity,
Because this 10-acre, 10 units that you come up with in R20 or whatever your
R30, yeah.
R30, that's assumes single family homes.
no, it doesn't.
'cause
It's
duplexes are
units.
right.
So these calculations, but again, that
It-
would it be a 4?
Yeah, but I mean, it comes out to the same thing, right? So it's either,
Chances are
Just
the
if I,
number of dwelling units.
yeah, if you're thinking of the conventional subdivision, it's
likely to be for freestanding, 10 freestanding
15
houses.
houses, or it could be 5 duplexes on bigger lots, whatever. Right? But it's
Right.
still,
Right, I mean, but
it's still same thing.
by you identifying the uses as 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you being the permit granting authority, and that was that clause we talked about, like, why does it say this? Where the permitting granting is for all structures and
Yeah.
allowed uses. That's a flexibility right there that no one has right now.
That'd be great.
Well, that's what's in there.
Right, so you could have.
Wait, where?
Well, we already said that you could do a 1, 2,
Yeah,
3, or
3 or
4
4.
unit, or a mix,
Oh,
or a
yeah.
mix. So somebody
Right.
You could have
could
a single
do,
family, a
somebody could
4
do a
unit.
standalone unit, a 4-unit building.
Right.
Duplex.
Another a 2-family over
Right.
here, whatever makes the most sense.
And you're
Right.
saving
And that- and then-
50% of the land.
I like the idea of tying the density bonus to
Size of
smaller,
structure.
size of structure and or multifamily.
Now, one of the reasons that that's good is that isn't our zoning, inclusionary zoning, say that when you build a affordable unit, it can't be any lesser or different
Yeah.
from.
Right.
Has to be like,
That'll be
So
complicated.
well,
That,
but
that could be complicated in a mixed
Yeah, yeah.
structure.
whether or not, but I mean, in Maine, you just have to build one. So what do? There's a building behind a building I know that has 2 and 3 bedroom units, and the affordable unit is off the garage and has 1 bedroom.
Yeah.
In other words, it is the poor door,
It is literally the,
the least that you
that
could.
that
I
is
mean,
not inclusion. You still segregated it in the same
you
development
segregate
by
it.
size and where you're located.
And where it's located, so
Yeah.
that the people who live in the 3-story don't have to come into contact with the poor people who live in the 1 bedroom. And I mean, it's, whereas over here at a schoolhouse, the 15%, which is what, 30 units?
you can't even tell.
They're
You can't, well,
integrated.
you can't tell because it's the income testing for the unit, for the person who moves in, not the unit itself.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
a unit that says this is the poor unit.
Right.
And so it's the people who live there that are income tested
Yeah.
for the 30 that maybe are whatever. And so if you want to accomplish 2 things at the same time, both increase, well, 3 things. You want to increase the supply, you want to increase the supply of smaller multifamily units, and you want to increase those that are affordable in the true legal definition of affordable at 80 or 60. And what we have in that comprehensive plan and I was very struck by the current assessment that they first did, is that our housing supply is mismatched.
Mhm.
We have a far greater number of single family than we do multifamily, but our household size is declining
Mhm.
and aging. So that we have, if you look at the numbers, we have a mismatch between household size today and our historic housing stock. How do you right size it? You don't build more single family at $1 million. Because that just brings people in who want to live in Gloucester, who can afford $1 million house. You want to increase the multifamily supply.
that's why I think tying the, as you said. tie
Well,
the
we can
density
look
bonus.
at that. I mean, that may be, I think one of the things that we're trying to do is come up with a realistic calculation so that you don't come up with a calculation that says
Yeah, that's
you can do
super,
45 units
Right.
and then you get a proposal for 15.
Right.
You know, then there's like what's wrong? I mean, clearly something's wrong here.
Yeah.
So if it were, you know, either the calculation could be different depending upon what you're proposing, or there could be a schedule like that, that they basically, and if there's a preference for either, again, this can always change over time, but if there's a preference for a certain unit size or type of housing, then you can promote it in that schedule by someone saying, okay, actually, it would make more sense for me to do it multifamily anyway, because I'm having constraints of how I can lay it out.
Right.
Well, and I have to say that issue is anybody could come in and underbuild on a site. In Oregon, when we have a multifamily zone where the maximum is 40, the minimum that you can build on it is 80%. You cannot take a site that is zoned for 40 and build 10 on it. And that's because they said, and because the intent is, well, of course, we have multifamily by right, so it's not a problem. But I mean, the intent is not, I mean, if the intent is 40 units, then you need, then when you buy that lot, that's how you're gonna develop it. And if you wanna build 10 units, then you go find a lot that's zoned R, whatever, R5.
Are you emailing me a schedule?
This is Massachusetts. It's not-
What's that?
From Acton, oh, it's in the folder.
Oh, it's in the folder now? Okay.
Yeah,
it was always in the folder?
No, well, we had
Oh.
talked about it early on
Yeah.
and, but it's,
Yeah.
you know, we're
Oh, I
building.
had
Now,
that.
now we're getting,
I
now we're
had that
getting
idea
to the,
all by myself without even reading it.
Now, there's another thing here that is important, is that we can use this as an educative for people in the community, but also for the city council, that there are ways
Mm.
to build in density that are not, that don't put fire in people's eyes. And that's by having these mixed use where a good deal of the property is held in open space and the density is barely seen from the road and it's set back from the nearby property. And so, and the capacity is there in terms of, sewer, stormwater, blah, blah, blah. It is a way of introducing it without multifamily zoning.
Mhm. Okay, well, let's look until between now and our next meeting. Let's look at the Acton thing. And if you all can stand having another meeting next week,
Sure.
is everyone
I
here?
think,
yes.
I'm not here.
usually.
Can you zoom in?
What,
At
what 30,000 foot location will you be in?
Oh, yeah.
you going to Hartford on a plane this time?
Flying back to Hartford next Sunday, or a week from Sunday.
Yeah, but that's not Thursday.
No. Okay. What's the date, Thursday?
That's,
No, I have no idea.
Today's the 20,
Over Halloween.
The 30th?
I thought the Halloween was on the
Uh-oh.
31st.
Yeah,
No, it's
Yeah.
Thursday is the
Day before.
No,
My flight doesn't land till 3:30. I probably won't get to the hotel till 4:30.
And where are you, in Hartford?
St. Croix.
well, let's see, next week will
I'll
not,
go to St. Croix.
will not be a BNF week if you wanted to meet later. We could also do that. We could make a Zoom meeting.
I mean,
Yeah,
at
I'm
6
just worried if
o'clock or
we're,
5 o'clock.
that depends on Sean's flight being on time and
Yeah, but
everything, and who knows?
5 o'clock.
Theoretically, land at
7.
3:30 and have to get a rental car and go to the other side of the island, so I would assume they'd be there.
About 6 maybe?
Wait, where again? Where are you gonna be?
St.
St. Croix. I don't think we should try and do it.
That's the first
And-
thing I'd like to do when I land in
I
St.
know.
Croix is, let me get on a Zoom meeting.
And David-
You'll have to ignore my drink.
David is out for a little bit. So,
And Steve is in and out, so Steve doesn't.
Yeah.
can't
Do
be
you
late.
wanna try a different day?
Yeah,
I mean, if we're
um,
gonna do a Zoom meeting, we can do it.
yeah,
yeah.
sure. But it has to be before Friday at noon, right? I mean,
Why Friday? at
Trick or
noon?
treaters.
because these guys don't work past noon on Fridays.
Oh,
So I could do Friday morning, I could do Wednesday at nap time.
well, do you,
no, and I can't do it on a Wednesday. I am totally booked
Okay.
on Wednesday.
Tuesday? That's Tuesday, the 27th.
Tuesday's the 28th.
I could do Tuesday before swimming lessons.
You're committed.
And my weekly dinner with my mom.
28th, I'm on a flight till 3:30 also.
Okay,
Tuesday evening,
It's gone.
Tuesday evening from 7 to 9.
I hate evenings. I have to.
Oh,
have
I
dinner-
can't either. We're
I have to
in
have dinner with my
transit.
mom.
We're in transit.
So what did we think about the morning of
How about Friday?
first?
Yeah, how about Friday morning? Like at 11. I have to exercise, Greg,
Okay,
first thing. I have to go to Barbara and with Vanessa. Or Simply Strength, Desta.
10 to 12?
yeah.
11 to
Yeah,
11
you
to
guys are,
12:30?
you guys are, what time are you really done?
12:30.
12:30? Okay, yeah, let's do 10:30 to 12:30.
That'll work. for me.
That way I can go to Desta's class.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Does that work for you,
It is
Sean?
I'm going to
Friday,
yoga
which-
at
what-
from 9
what's
to
the date?
10.
31st.
31st?
31st.
Yes, I don't fly until, for what time are we doing it?
10:30 to 12:30.
What time's your flight?
4:30, but I'll be at a hotel. I'll just have to check out before getting on Zoom. So, should be fine.
Check out at 11.
You'll figure it out. Since we're,
So we'll do a Zoom at 10:30 on Friday the 31st.
okay,
10:30, 12:30.
great.
Let's
Thank
see,
you,
what
everybody,
time?
for keeping moving on this.
10:30?
Yes,
10:30 to
You're
12:30.
gonna send a Zoom invite?
yes.
Cool.
All right.
And I'll see if I can get. check out.
And your homework is to look at that act and stuff. But when the 15 minutes left to us or 20 minutes left to us, we can keep looking at this because I had a couple of other tiny things that I want to run by you guys. So the next thing was under dimensional requirements, 0.3, which was each lot shall have a 50% of the required setbacks in the district. But I did take Chris's point that except where the development is next to
Yep.
a property owned on the same ownership. Did you see
Yeah,
that?
that was good.
I'm pulling this back up.
Okay,
Shifting screens.
Fine, Act 5, number 3.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I just want Greg to read it.
Except where the electric shares are bounding with adjacent property. Yep.
Okay. And then as I reordered the sections, I tried to make the names of the sections more parallel, so I called this open space requirements because the previous one was dimensional requirements.
Okay.
And then site design standards,
That one, in B,
yeah,
we have design lotting, but we have elsewhere lotting's not required, so
but
shouldn't it be
in B which, in fact.
nine-
Design standards.
597B?
7B.
Oh, yeah,
Then it'd be building siding, it says building siding, building
design,
should be design building siding to minimize grading and preserve trees
yeah,
instead of lotting.
Yes, I think we got.
Lotting
that
is
was
a
supposed to
bad,
come
or
out.
you could say lotting
Yeah.
pattern. Lotting is a pattern. What did you just
building,
recommend? I'm just trying to
building
add.
siting, building with
Mine
an
was-
SITING.
Mine
instead
was
of
to
lotting.
send to all attendees. What in the hell is that? 10:30 to 11.
Oh, I sent you an invite already.
Oh, I see. I just, I, sometimes you get that, it says, send to all attendees, and like, what? I mean, I'm just putting it on my own calendar. Send it. Okay, where are we? Sorry.
5.9.7B.
5
Yeah, I think that was already
0.7B.
supposed to be an edit,
Okay. it
to
didn't- it
to
didn't.
remove lotting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I said you could say
Yep.
lotting pattern.
Yeah.
Okay. And then under C in roads, I think it just said use subdivision standards.
Yeah.
And so I put in section whatever of the rules and regs,
What
or
we are in 0.9, what are we in?
597
597C.
C.
So
What-
do we need to refer to a section that, or do we just,
Would it refer to the
Okay, here we go.
6.1, the rules and regulations pertaining to the city of Gloucester open space residential
No.
development? No.
No, we're,
It says
yes,
road.
which brings up. another
right,
topic.
we're gonna, because that was the companion to the existing OSRD ordinance, which is gonna go away, and that section
Impressed.
is probably gonna go away.
Okay.
But we can make reference to, the appendix that has the dimensional requirements.
Okay, well, I'll let you figure what
Yep.
that's supposed to be.
Yep.
But I made the subdivision most regs in a notebook, so I could look it up. And then under G, I don't know if this is fair, but I'm on a wicked tree bent.
Mhm.
So should tree species have to comply with the list of trees that we have?
I think we could probably reference the states.
Okay,
Yeah. that makes
I
sense.
think, I mean, they update that.
okay,
We can say, I'll get the specific reference to it. It's the one that we talked about
Mhm.
when we were talking about, our tree
That
ordinance.
makes sense.
okay,
So in our tree ordinance, we basically, if there's a true preference for certain species, our ordinance identifies what those are.
hmm,
And then we wanted to make sure that there was nothing on that list that was
Bad,
now
right,
listed as.
diseased or
as,
whatever.
uh,
yeah.
No
So-
longer, no longer.
Yeah,
mean, we
so we can
do-
make, we can make.
No,
We
reference.
do have a preference for all types of oaks
Mhm.
because they're best for the caterpillars and the butterflies and the birds and the food chain.
Mm.
Could we say that?
I think you should let people choose.
I mean. Yeah, I don't know if they're universally in every application, the
Okay.
best thing, so
Okay.
some flexibility in landscape design, but you're gonna see it. you
Yep.
can Ask about it, but I
Okay.
think we should probably be a little bit broader to have a little.
Okay,
Yeah, I think so too.
and then I paralleled these, so it's allow smaller lots, design,
Yes,
building,
right,
setting,
you're
use,
very
subdivision,
good, very
provide,
nice.
install,
Allow.
demonstrate, provide.
Design, provide, excellent, it's superb.
And I did it in open space requirements too. These are
Yeah,
whole
okay.
sentences, but they mostly shall be, shall be, shall be. Okay. Environmental protection standards. So David had proposed
This is
per-
on 0.8.
5.9.8, yeah. Under steep slopes B. David proposes that we prohibit development rather than discourage development on steep slopes. I'm just reporting that. I don't know what my opinion is.
Well, I sort of agree, but remember we took our walk, well, I mean, look at the site behind the gas station.
I mean, I think prohibiting development actually is probably a good idea. If the steep slope would only be used maybe for access.
I would just like to do this example.
On steep slope.
Oh, I see what he's doing.
Diagonal line from that to that. 1 on 4,
So
that's a 25% slope.
that's not terrible,
It's
is what you're
not,
saying.
it's not, so we always say more than that. you know,
Yeah,
That's the threshold, but I
Right.
don't think it's necessarily that's completely undeveloped. Yeah.
right, but we're saying, yeah,
We're saying
greater,
it's discouraged.
greater than
Yes.
25%.
Well, and you can do some grading and, right? I mean, at individual sites, you can
Yeah.
grade, that's, so the guy at for the 2 lots behind the gas station would look at an achievable access.
And those
Through
those
grading.
were far great. I mean, that's
Greater
like
than
the
25.
threshold for consideration. Those were far, some of those areas
Yeah.
were far greater than that. But think about it, if you look at a house that has a walkout basement.
Yeah, true, okay,
So I
So-
think it's,
it's okay.
Yeah,
I mean, if you wanted to put in something above that, I mean, if it's.
Well, but that's what we're saying.
Some percent.
We're saying discouraged on steep slopes above
Yes,
25%.
yes.
So, but should we say prohibited on steep slopes higher than 20%?
Well, then what would that, yeah, I mean, I think you might want to think about another threshold.
I see.
Of what that would be. We
I would
could-
say discourage, and that way you could make it as,
it could be part of.
Right,
could
and then
be
when
part
somebody
of the
shows
special
you a
permit.
grading plan and what
And-
they're proposing to do, and the first thing they do is identify this stuff, we're like, well. Why, how did you arrive at this and what did you consider?
Right, and how does the fire department feel about this access? I think the whole point, if you're gonna go to special permit, you should give them the flexibility within that permit in this particular. But also starting a sentence with a number, is not good grammar, but. I looked at this and thought, well, I don't know. what to say.
Okay, well then leave as is. These are parallel because development avoids, development is discouraged.
Yeah, but wetlands is 25 buffers around water.
But buffers shall be preserved. Ecological assessments shall be provided. And exterior lighting shall be full cut off.
Oh, I see what you did.
But I could do buffers of blah, 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 blah. Shall be
Yeah, I think
preserved.
that's better, only
Okay,
it's better.
yeah.
It's just awkward to start to start a phrase with it. It's a minor issue.
I know, but I get
Well, I know, you're a perfectionist.
it. Well, not letting it
I
be
like
the enemy of
sometimes,
the
when you-
good.
I like sometimes when you start editing your own paragraphs.
I know.
That's my,
That's your favorite of yours.
I love that part. Like, Jane, well,
Yeah.
sure, you can make that edit.
That's because every time I look at it, I think a different way. Okay, 5.9.9, I just added the word review because the other one, there was a lot of words about reviews. In these design process, David made a comment and I actually want to rewrite it a little bit by putting the verbs up front. In other words, saying first, identify and delineate critical natural resources instead of having this whole, all that middle phrasing in there. And then at the end of the sentence shall be identified and delineated. So I'll make those edits.
I read this and
Yeah.
thought it was rather bulky.
It is. I'll see if I can.
Yeah. I mean,
Pare it down.
I didn't look at ways to do it.
So then, unless anyone else has another comment, all the way to 5.9.92,
0.9.92, yeah.
reviews by other boards and city officials.
I thought, on this,
Yeah.
towards the end of the second line, when you say a digital copy of the application,
I
Where,
would say copies, wouldn't you?
working within 5 working days of filing a complete application, yeah, a digital copy, or do you want more copy? No,
No,
Okay,
a digital copy, and then an accompanying development plan.
okay.
Okay, in that line though, you referred to boards or officials capitalized in the next sentence. You make boards and officials in small caps. So, I mean, so you
Okay.
have to make a decision.
Oh, I
People-
think they're small because we
Yeah,
don't know
I mean,
what
I,
we're referring
I
to.
am above that you
Yeah.
should make them small.
Yeah.
It comes whether every time we mention the city of Gloucester and we just say city, should city be capitalized or little? And I always go for little, but you have to be consistent.
Okay, so the one thing I added was a independent consultant at the applicant's expense.
Yeah,
I know
Right,
this language
right.
was taken from other ordinances,
Yeah.
but isn't that worth spelling out?
yes.
It's a question for Greg, really. Or
yeah, I
does
mean, when
everybody?
you do that under that provision
Mhm.
of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section.
Which I also, by the
53D.
way, spelled out. It was very sadly spelled.
And yes, they have to do it.
You
for
can,
us, right?
for emphasis, sure. I
Okay.
mean, we could make that clear.
Okay. And then I just made these 2 sections parallel because we didn't have another section. Well, definitive OSRD plan review, and then the first section and the second section, just the way we did with the pre-application stuff. Okay, so if we go to point number 4 under A, general procedure,
We're under,
This is-
10-1.
yeah, yes.
Thank you.
This is the point that David made,
Information.
that this section should be included in the pre-application review because proof of septic capacity is so important to the design.
I mean, I don't think somebody's really gonna go too far if they don't have that information.
Yeah.
so.
Well, and they're not gonna be able to go too far to develop a plan if they don't know what they're.
Right.
Yeah.
So yes,
Sure. Bring it up front.
okay. And then I added B, review by independent consultants, because that's how it was in the previous
Yep.
sections, and added at the applicant's expense. And then in 5.9.11, there was no title under B, so I just added conservation easements.
Mhm.
And then in 5.9.12, the discussion of what is a major amendment. So we had
Yes,
thrown
I
this
thought that
out.
was really,
at the last meeting, but not discussed it.
yes.
So,
I have a problem of kicking, the thing, kicking from what we call minor amendment to major amendment,
mhm,
to build it, to move a building 10 feet. I mean, I find that,
too restrictive.
I mean, I think to kick that into a major review. It's
What would be,
Compared, I don't know, I don't know. The number of lots or dwelling units. I get it through 3. I just think moving a building 10 feet,
do you have a comment on that? Greg?
I'm just trying to remember what the existing says. We have that,
if it
I
exists,
mean,
it says in
I
fine.
know, yeah. Think of the ones that we have permitted in the past. Wouldn't we like them? to
altering
come?
location of any building or structure by more than.
Wouldn't we like them to come? Even if it's short?
Just leave.
Okay, so what I really wanted to discuss was number 3. Because we had number of lots and dwelling units, and I added building size or decrease in setback. So I don't know if you all agree with me on that, or if I'm being too restrictive in terms of the triggers.
Well, it seems to me the mix of building types is not a bad thing to look at.
Did we say that?
You got number of lots, dwelling units, and now building size or decrease in setback. Yeah, I mean, that's,
If you're gonna move a building for 10 feet and you decrease the setback, don't you think decreasing the setback is as important as a trigger for moving a building 10 feet?
I think that's fair.
So I feel like if this catches, somebody planned to put, the big building with 4 units over here and the little building with 2 units over here, and they decide to swap them or something like that,
That's,
just.
it's more explicit. I think that's fair.
Okay.
And if they decided to build more, increase the number of dwelling units, that's because they have not built to the max.
Mhm.
Because there'd be no grounds for increasing above the maximum, so they've gone to less than the maximum, and now they've decided in doing their development plan that, well, the economics are such that I should really add back in those 3 units to get to max, and this is how I have to do it.
You would probably figure that out in the pre-application.
You would hope, but you'd hope they'd figure all this out. You need to move a building 10 feet.
I'm gonna-
and you're-
Change the word permanent open space to conservation. It's different. Okay. We're almost there, you guys.
Yeah.
We just have one major, one
Well-
additional,
And that's the formula.
and that's the any
Well,
density
we'll
bonus.
look at because it's not something, I mean, we talked, I think, a little bit about it, that, the uses allow for a lot of flexibility in what type of housing somebody. prefers. And now it's just a matter of if you want to not necessarily incentivize, but more make a preference, but also that preference would come with some sort of incentive. So.
Oh, yeah, and then we talked about this last time, but David brought it up again. Why wouldn't we make an OSRD conceptual plan mandatory for any site above 10 acres in size? Along with a conceptual definitive subdivision. In other words, if someone's coming in with a definitive subdivision, make them look at this as well.
I will ask and see if I can find an example, but what we would do is that would be an amendment to the subdivision regulations. We
Oh.
might be able to look at our subdivision procedures for a definitive plan or for a preliminary plan and say, prior to or
Yeah.
something like that. I'll look to see if that's something that we can explore.
So,
There's one typo.
where?
Okay, go to the.
Page.
No, yeah. Go to the formula.
Mhm.
Okay, so you've got minus parents, area of critical natural resources should have an ending parents. Parentheses, plus parentheses, land area, it doesn't?
I guess there probably needs to be.
No, the concluding,
Yeah, I put the parentheses around it because it has a multiplier.
yeah, so the concluding parenthesis is after 0.15. There's two parentheses.
Yeah.
So it's a parentheses within a parentheses?
Land area parcel times 0.15 is within
Oh,
area of
gotcha.
critical natural resources.
Then in those cases, sometimes you go to brackets, but okay. A double parentheses is awkward. You go.
Okay, yeah, we
Alright.
could do a square bracket
I'll do
You go
that.
around the whole
bracket.
thing, yeah.
You do a bracket or you do parentheses around the whole thing and you put a bracket around land area of parcel times 1.15 should be bracketed. It's bracketed, it's a lower value than parentheses,
Is
but,
it? I didn't know
yeah,
that. I learned
yeah.
something new
but
every
it's
day.
important because these
Motor
are
operations.
they're mathematical
Yeah.
operations,
Yeah.
and if you don't have the, so I misread it. Cause I
Okay.
didn't see the double parents.
Okay.
It's okay.
Greg, I will make these edits, but I'll do it in track changes and I'll run it by you.
Okay.
And you can check the subdivision rules and regs.
I'm gonna check the subdivision rules. I'm gonna check with Suzanne on the ability to
Oh,
Okay.
require
consider
both.
that.
Okay. Is this,
As long as it's not too onerous, but if they do a concept plan, you're saying to them, you've looked at doing a cluster. It's made you think about doing a cluster. It's made you evaluate whether a cluster gives you more. And now you're doing a standard and we're gonna let you choose.
Well, I think maybe the thing to do is if somebody's going to the subdivision regulation, it doesn't hurt to say, you know, applicants may wish to consider and at least make them a reference and point them to
Yeah.
this so that they know
Right.
to look there as well.
right,
Because when somebody's proposing a subdivision, they may just be,
They
Right.
they go straight to our subdivision regs and say, okay, this is what's required. They go to the ordinance to look at the zoning district and then they kind of leave it at that.
Right.
so was there anything in here that, I haven't even read this. In the OSRD rules and regs that we should worry about?
We're kind of building it in, so this is in here because our current OSRD is a subdivision.
Oh,
they have
I
to have-
see. Okay,
They have to make sure that somebody goes to this section and doesn't go to section 3 and section 4.
uh-huh,
So we're building in a lot of this into the ordinance itself.
okay. Okay.
Yep.
Great. These are all the places where trees are mentioned in subdivision rules and regs.
They're green,
I agree.
color coded.
All right, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I so moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.